My name is Georgina Barrett-Lenton. I am a manager at PwC working in our sort of workforce tech transformation
hmm
team.
Thank you. And why did you decide to study at the University of Aberdeen and particularly history course?
Yeah. So I always had a passion for history when I was at school. And I thought that if I was going to go to university, do a degree,
hmm
I wanted to make sure that it was something that I was passionate about, interested in. And for me, the original goal was to come to university, study history, and then do a conversion course into law when I was done.
Yeah.
So I thought that law, history would kind of lend itself a little bit well to going into law afterwards. Obviously, that did not happen. That's not the route we went down. But Aberdeen was just somewhere different as well. It had the coast, it had sort of, the Cairngorms, etc. nearby. So
Yeah.
somewhere different to Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, during your time at Aberdeen, were there any specific experiences or skills that have proven particularly valuable in your role as an HR technology consultant?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think working with kind of different lecturers, having loads of different styles and having to adapt how you're kind of taking that information in was really valuable.
hmm
But also working with different people in some of the kind of group work that we did.
hmm
Every client I work with is different. So being able to kind of change my communication approach, how I deliver things, but also how every lecturer wanted an essay written in a slightly different way. Every client wants their deliverables done in a slightly different way. They want different things highlighted in the report. So being able to take that over was very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. What motivated your transition from law to consulting in HR technology solutions?
I wanted a life. So I did quite a few pupilages leading up to kind of like mini experiences leading up to third year,
hmm
and realized that the area of law that I was most passionate about probably would have given me the least kind of work-life balance. So ironically, I went into consulting instead.
hmm
And it was just more of a transition of what am I interested in? What skill sets do I have? What was out there genuinely at the time? I'd never heard of HR tech.
Yeah.
And as a grad scheme, I was like, there are worse places to go and do a grad scheme at PwC. Actually, really ended up enjoying what I was doing and learning a lot. So, all a bit of a fluke, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Interesting. And what are your current responsibilities and how does your day looks like in your current role?
So no 2 days tend to be the same, which is a bit of a cliche, but it's true. At the moment, we work on project to project. So projects could run anywhere between a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years. As a manager in the kind of tech space, if it was a tech implementation, I'd be responsible for implementing one of the work streams. So we have different modules. I specialize in Workday's technology. So you could be responsible for implementing HCM, you could be reporting, talent, recruitment, and then you would kind of support and manage your team who are doing the configuration as well. But that's kind of like a standard if we were doing a tech implementation, but we do a lot of varied things for our clients as well.
Yeah, very interesting. The next question is, what strategies do you use to effectively communicate complex HR technology solutions to clients?
Yeah, so obviously when you're implementing a new system, that in itself can be quite complex. People are used to working with what they're used to. A lot of the time we're coming in and replacing a legacy system that's been there for maybe 10, 15 years. So, this is all they've ever known. So
hmm
we work with clients from the very beginning, often doing kind of phase zero programs
hmm
to bring them on this journey with us. So they come for the transformation. We start to understand kind of where are the pain points, where do they need to be, what are the future aspirations, and how can we help them get there? And
hmm
kind of break it down into that granular level. So actually, it doesn't seem that daunting when we're suddenly turning around and going, cool, for the next 2 years, we're going to be doing nothing but building your HR system. And then you've got to use it once we're gone. So kind of bringing them on that journey with us, breaking it down, a lot of in-person workshops, a lot of conversations, and a lot of back and forth kind of design sessions,
hmm
so that they feel like they're really involved.
Yeah, very interesting. And what trends do you see emerging in the HR technology consulting space?
I think a lot of the trends that are emerging for us are
Mm,
the same as for everyone else. Like Gen AI obviously is a massive thing. And we're working with partners externally. to kind
Yeah.
of see how we can bring that into some of the tech world. So there's a bit of a partnership going on that
Yeah.
hasn't been announced yet, but we're looking at kind of like how would AI support in like the day-to-day stuff that you would do in your HR system. So if you were looking at holiday balances, sort of leave, sickness, or reporting, but also how can it help with some of the background configuration elements, so the business processes and kind of everything that runs in the background. How can we bring that in to kind of make it more involved?
Interesting. Well, reflecting on your career at PwC, what accomplishments are you most proud of?
It's been a long time now, or at least it feels like it's been a long time. I've been here for nearly 6 years. But I think still one of the things that I'm most proud of is kind of my willingness to just take on new roles. So after being at the firm for probably about 2.5 years, not quite 2.5, I kind of got offered the opportunity to go and do a new certification. No one else had done it in the firm yet. So went and did my adaptive certification, then became one of the only people in our UK firm that could do it, got seconded to a client for 6 months, and then basically became their SME. And it was very much this is the deep end, sink or swim. Do you want to, learn how to be good, learn how to be that SME, or do you want to kind of flop and fail a little bit? So still kind of proud of myself for not failing and becoming that expert. And then that's kind of given me some of the opportunities that I've had since then.
Very
Yeah.
impressive.
So, what advice would you give to graduates aspiring to work in HR, technology, consulting, especially those transitioning from non-technical backgrounds?
Yeah, I think a lot of the people that I work with don't come from technical backgrounds. So, things like Workday success factors, Oracle, like, they're the top three people systems, Dayforce, you can't learn about those at university.
Yeah.
So coming in with kind of that open mindset, that willingness to learn, having initiative and being ready to kind of look at the wider program and be like, okay, I'm responsible at this point for this one little bit, but I can see that this is going to need help, or further down the line, we're going to need to do this. So having that mindset and training yourself into thinking, what's the bigger picture? What am I trying to do? How can I help?
Yeah.
That will really help going far, as opposed to, we don't need the technical skill sets of you coming in and knowing how to do Workday.
And are there any books or podcasts you would recommend for our students, career or non-career related?
Oh, um, probably not podcasts or books. I think there's a lot of TED Talks and live streams
Yeah.
that are being done, particularly by one of our senior partners called Pete Brown. And he talks a lot about some of the global trends, everything that we're seeing in the market, technology, not technology, transformation, a lot around kind of the people function, the people world, and what we're seeing in that space. They are really interesting for giving you a bit of a background, a bit of a mindset, and an overview of all the kind of things that we would do within the workforce team. I wouldn't necessarily say any podcasts or books on Workday implementations would be very helpful or useful for people that aren't in that world. But yeah, Pete Brown, look him up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
He's all over it. But he does LinkedIn lives regularly that are really interesting.
Interesting. And would you say networking is important in your career, in your type of career?
Yes,
Okay. And
absolutely.
in what ways? In what ways?
So you have, obviously, networking is important from an internal perspective. So, we do have what we call fair access to work, where all opportunities for all projects come up on the dashboard. Everyone has the opportunity to kind of apply to them, but you tend to know they're coming up more if you've spoken to like a partner or director that's in charge of them, responsible for them, or you've helped with the RFP to bring them in. So from an internal perspective, it's good for the career development. It's good for learning more about what we do from a broader perspective on projects and understanding, like say, that wider picture. But also externally, it's how we get clients.
Yeah.
The relationships and that you build if you go to a conference or you go to come say at a seminar and you meet someone, they could end up being future HRDs, future HRIS, like leads of teams. And they then come to you being like, actually, we've got this problem. Do you know how to fix it? So it's kind of networking is key to how we bring in new relationships and new clients.
Interesting.
And looking back at your time at university and Aberdeen, what are your fondest memories?
yeah, that was a while ago. It feels like a while ago. I think some of my fondest memories are probably the friendships I made
Mhm.
in the communities that I was in, and the societies and sports. But also kind of meeting people with a proper passion for what they were talking about. Like, you study history, we're all slightly nerdy, we all read aggressively and write a lot of things. But like getting to listen to the lecturers that genuinely were interested in what they were talking about, like that, it made it worth it. Because you're like, otherwise you spent 4 years sat in a room listening to people that aren't very interesting. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think the
Interesting.
combination of some of the societies I was in and the more
Uh,
passionate lecturers.
and did you participate in any clubs or societies?
I was in the cheerleading society.
Okay,
So
interesting.
4 years of going to competitions,
Hmm.
which was a lot of fun. We
Yeah.
went to Barcelona in the last year, which enjoyed that as well.
Interesting. And a little bit more about networking. What's your advice for students to utilize networking for their like benefit, like particularly for students?
Yeah, I'd say particularly for students, it would be networking with a purpose. So if you're going to open days, you're going to the fairs, you're going to like an event for a particular company or whatever, go with a purpose, go with questions and speak to them for a reason. You
Yeah.
know, I've done some of those recruitment days and you see so many people throughout the day that if
Mhm.
someone just rocks up and goes, "Hi, I'm interested, tell me all about it," and it's like a very generic kind of
Yeah.
introduction, you don't necessarily remember them versus someone that's done their research comes up and goes, "I've seen that you've got this team, or I've seen that you've done this piece of work recently, or this was in the news. Like, could you tell me more about it?" So,
Mhm.
like, networking with a purpose as opposed to just networking to try and make as many connections as you can have, I think for students and for later on in life is really valuable.
Mhm. Interesting. And two more questions. What's your advice for students who are struggling with stress, whether due to like personal reasons or like academic reasons?
I think finding it sounds cliche, but finding a balance and finding the things that work for you.
Hmm.
Um, so at PwC, we have kind of, so I'm part of the wellbeing network here, and we have definitions for wellbeing of like your mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional. And sometimes it's having to make sure that actually you're not sacrificing one of those areas in
Hmm.
order to look after the other one. So making sure that you are looking after each of those elements in its own turn and knowing what works best for you, and then being open, having those conversations. And for students, especially, if things are doing too much, speak to your lecturers, speak to your seminar leaders, make sure that they're aware of what's going on because people can't help you if they don't know.
Yeah.
Like if you hide what's going on and you hide the fact that you're stressed and everything is building up, then no one can actually offer you support. Whereas if you have those open conversations, as tough as it can be, that's how you get the support that you need.
Yeah. That's a great advice. Thank you. And the last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Um, Probably to take a couple more risks and be a little bit more open to
Hmm.
everything. I think when I came into university, I had a very rigid, this is the path I'm going to take. I will do
Hmm.
4 years here and then I'll go home and I will do my law conversion and then I will do this and then I will do that. Which meant by the time I got to third year and suddenly decided I didn't want to do law, I was quite panicky. I was like, oh God, like I've got 1 year left and then what? So I think if I'd have been more open and kind of explored different avenues, then I might not have been quite as panicked when it came to fourth year.
Hmm.
And I just don't think you need to tunnel yourself into something when you're 18 because you've got no idea what you really want to do on a whole that young.